Hi everybody, welcome to Spotlight. I'm Connie Bowman. Today we're taking a look at how the spiraling increase in college tuition costs in America needs to be addressed. For-profit institutions of higher education enroll about 10% of all college students, but take in 20% of the Department of Education's federal student aid funds, and account for 44% of student loan defaults. My guest today is Senator Dick Durbin, who also serves as the Assistant Democratic Leader in the U.S. Senate. Welcome, Senator.
Thanks, Connie.
We have some questions for you from our viewers about this issue, but first, can you talk about how for-profit colleges are, as you say, exploiting student debt in America?
96% of the students who go to for-profit colleges have to borrow money. On average, they borrow about $40,000. That is dramatically larger than the borrowers or the amount of debt that most students face. Why? Because these schools are more expensive, dramatically more expensive. They lure these kids into debt, promising them that ultimately they'll get a diploma. Some of them even advertise, well, you can earn your diploma in your pajamas, showing a young lady with a laptop on a bed. That actually was a commercial that ran in the Washington, D.C. area. So they say this is an easy way to get a college education. It turns out the educations aren't worth much. The students who graduate from the for-profit schools are more likely to be unemployed and more likely to earn lower salaries, and they can't pay back the loans. The statistic you started with is key. 10% of the students, 44% of all the student loan defaults, for-profit schools, University of Phoenix, DeVry, just go down the list, Kaplan. All of these schools are for-profit schools. People are starting to understand that they're not a good bargain.
Okay. So what type of regulatory scrutiny can the federal government apply to make sure that colleges and universities know that they have a responsibility to lower student debt?
Well, they're finally cracking down on this industry. I've been talking about this for a few years, but I have to say we've made some dramatic progress. The enrollment in for-profit colleges and universities has been plummeting, and their stock prices have plummeted as well. Why? The American people have figured it out. This, when it says too good to be true, it is too good to be true. You just can't go to these schools and end up with a diploma, an easy diploma that gets you a job. So how do we police their ranks? First, make sure they're not lying to the government. We just had one yesterday. The Education Management Corporation fined $95 million by the Department of Justice because they were paying bounties to recruiters. The slogan at this school was, find a student with a pulse and a Pell, which meant if you were alive and had a low enough income to qualify for a Pell Grant, that's all they needed. They would accept you. That meant $5,500 flowed directly to the schools. So now the Department of Justice has come down with one of the largest fines against these schools in history because of the kind of fraud that they're engaged in.
Sure. So one of our viewers, Bob Barnes, asks if students are just plain out borrowing too much money.
I think they are. I really do. How is an 18, 19, 20-year-old student able to measure how much debt is okay for college? You've had beaten into your head since you can remember mom and dad saying, you've got to go to college. It's key, you've got to go to college. Right. Here's your chance. You're sitting across the table, and here's somebody pushes the forms in front of you and says you can start classes Monday. All you need to do is sign these forms, and it's only $10,000. Now, what does $10,000 mean to a person who's 19 years old if it means a college education? They've been told over and over again, you'll make more money if you go to college. They sign the papers. Next year it's another 10, then another 10. Sure. They don't realize that when they finally graduate, if they have a diploma that's worth anything, it may not earn them the kind of income to pay off their debt. Many of them have postponed payments. You know what happens? The debt grows. What started at $40,000 is now $50,000 and $60,000. These poor students are saddled with debts that are not dischargeable in bankruptcy. These are debts that are with them for a lifetime.
Well, many of our viewers would like to know, should the government continue to subsidize college education or even make it free?
Well, I think that we ought to say that college should be a debt-free experience. And that means that students who can't afford to pay the tuition. Those who can't are going to be given help so they don't end up in debt. And so these kids have a fighting chance. Certainly the president's suggestion about community colleges is a good one. There's a bargain in virtually every state. You can start at a community college, earn college degree credits that can be transferred to another school, and do it in an affordable way. If a student's not sure what they want to do, community college is 9 times out of 10 the right place to start. But I think really aiming our country toward debt-free higher education is the kind of goal that will serve us for generations to come.
Great, and there's some great community colleges out there, and that's a viable idea. But how does the cost of, the rising cost of college education factor into all of this? Because it is skyrocketing.
It's crazy. And I tell the people who run these colleges and universities, you know, you can't keep doing this. Every time we see kids getting deeper in debt, we raise the Pell Grant a little bit, and then they raise the tuition right along with it. We've got to reach the point where we have an affordable higher education. And that means these schools have to look at ways, cost savings that they can put in place. Let me give you one that every student knows, virtually every student knows, that we overlook: the cost of textbooks. Do you know what a trip to the bookstore means for kids? Hundreds of dollars of debt. Many times these professors have never thought twice about that $285 textbook that they're demanding a student buys. We live in an age of Amazon, where we go shopping for books at a discount every day online. Why don't the student bookstores get into the 21st century and give to students textbooks online that are free, or textbooks that can be rented instead of purchased, or textbooks that are affordable? This, to me, is a cost to students that it's often overlooked. Every college and university can address this.
So many good ideas. You recently encouraged the Senate leadership to reauthorize the Perkins Loan Program, the oldest federal student loan program. Can you talk about that a little bit and why it's important?
I'm a little partial. I had a Perkins loan when I was in college, way back when. And the notion is, if you come from a low-income family, that you'd have an affordable loan with a low interest rate. That was the key to my college and law school education. And I paid it back. I had 10 years to pay it back. Now it needs to be reauthorized. So we've got to give students government loan borrowing authority and warn students, be careful about the private loans, the loans through banks and other institutions. Stick with the government loans, because ultimately your payments are going to be affordable. Some of the jobs you might take as a teacher or a nurse will forgive some of your student debt. Private loans, not the case. So I want to see Perkins loans reauthorized so that students have affordable loans when they have to borrow.
One more question. If somebody is interested in finding more information, where is the absolute best place for them to go?
I think that's the right question. The Department of Education has a website, which I would like to put on the screen so I don't get it wrong.
Okay.
But students can then take a look at the government loans, grants and loans, Pell Grants, learn how they qualify, and government loans, which are the right loans at affordable interest rates that they ought to be really looking to first before they get into private loans.
Thank you so much, Senator.
Good to be with you.
And if you agree with Senator Durbin's opinion, please visit his channel on Press Reader and support it. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
A great interview, I think.
I'm going to British Columbia.